One presents Heard on Thursday. Heard on Thursday. The premier magazine talk show on FM radio. Your host, JC Chavez.
Hey, good evening, monsters. JC Kev is here with you all Thursday night from the Daily Survey right up to Heard on Thursdays. Hot conversations on hot topics only on Manila's hottest monster, RX93.1. So when you hear the words Philippine history, are you inspired? Are you outraged? Do your eyes glaze over with boredom, or do you still shake in fear recalling that terror professor and that history exam that you flunked years ago? Well, let's demystify those words. Philippine history, when you come right down to it, history is not just his history or her story or their story. It is our story, collectively, your story. The stories of your country, of your people, of your ancestors. It's the story of how you came to be as a Filipino. And that ought to be a very interesting story indeed. Worth the binge watching, or in this case, the binge listening. Yes, our guest tonight is a writer and avid history buff. He is the editor in chief of Summit Books with its wide variety of absorbing and enlightening fiction and nonfiction. He's also associate editor of Spin.PH, the Sports Interactive Network Philippines. He has written extensive articles about Philippine history for Esquire Philippines, and he has now transformed those articles into a podcast called Occupy Pilipinas. Heard on Thursdays, writer and editor LIO Mangubat. The phone line also will be open, or you can comment on our Facebook Live, which is now live, facebook.com/RX931. Feel free to call us 863-19393. If you have any questions later on tonight, you can also post them on our Facebook page and Twitter page. Leo, how are you?
Hey man, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us, Leo. And if I'm not mistaken, it's our first time to meet on the show. Have you ever been on our show before? Prior to
No, but a couple of our authors have. I think you interviewed one of our authors when he launched the book late last year. So yeah. I am familiar.
Actually, we have to thank you because every time we need a guest, an interesting guest, we always are able to get authors from Summit Books. So it's really cool. And I'm guessing a lot of that is because of you. But first, let's get to know you, Leo. My first question to all my guests here is, especially now that we're at home, besides what you're doing at work, besides your podcast, what's keeping you busy? We were talking a little bit about it behind the scenes.
Yeah, we were, yeah. But definitely the thing that I'm I want to take care of now, scratch off my to-do list is Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Yes.
I hate open world games. They suck so much of my time. I bought the game when it launched, maybe late November, I guess.
Yeah.
And up to now, I'm still playing it. Yeah, I mean, I'm 100 hours in. It's crazy. It's really good, but also really long. So, and it's history. I mean, I love it. It's history. So it's entertaining history. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite Assassin's Creed? Mine was 2. Assassin's Creed 2, though, with Ezio has always been my favorite one. Do you have a favorite one?
Yeah, my younger brother actually played the early ones. I only got started in Origins, the Egypt one.
Oh, the Egypt
one, and I skipped the Greece one, and now I'm in the Vikings one because I was such a huge fan of the Vikings show. So I said, okay, hey, yeah, let's play this. Yeah.
I love it. And, it's all, for me, it's stuff like that, video games and, other platforms, other media that makes, for me, history more interesting. Because when you hear the term history, there is, like it or not, for a lot of people, a negative connotation behind history as a more, maybe like something that's boring or so how do you get people interested in history, especially Philippine history, since you seem to be so adamant about sharing the story of the Filipino, which I think is amazing. But how do you jazz it up or make it interesting for the casual fan?
Yeah. I know. I love that you use the word casual fan. Like you think of it as video games because that's actually one of the episodes I did. Episode 6. It was about how the bubonic plague came to the Philippines, and that episode. That article, when I first started writing it, actually came about when I was playing Red Dead Redemption 2.
Oh, good game! I haven't played. I played the first one. I haven't had the chance to try the second one.
This was 2 years ago, and I was playing, and there was a town, And it's set in the 1890s, late 1890s. You're a cowboy there, and then you pick up a newspaper, and obviously there's something about the Philippine American War. That one I kind of expected. Like, okay, yeah, of course they would write about the Philippine American War because it was the big news at the time.
Hmm.
But then there was like this little snippet below it. It said, bubonic plague arrives in the Philippines, and I was like, huh. Okay, and then I had this history book that I bought a couple of years ago, and I looked it up, and true enough, around the 1899s, I was like, yeah, the bubonic plague actually did arrive in the Philippines. So my mind was blown in the sense that developers of a Western video game 100 years ago, I don't know if they knew this was true or not, or I've never found that. I've always wanted to reach out to Rockstar and ask, hey, did you
Yeah,
guys actually, know this happened?
right.
And then looking up that bubonic plague actually made me fall into a rabbit hole of, how the Americans looked at disease in the country, and how they were using it, to further the aims of their war. And
Mhm.
then when the pandemic happened, like it started stacking up because I published the article already, but when the pandemic happened, of course I was turning it into a podcast, and I said, okay, I have to expand this. The pandemic happened, and all these things, the lockdowns and the quarantines, and the asymptomatic carriers and the contact tracing,
Mhm.
they're all there. It all happened more than 120 years ago. Like these exact same things, happened already.
Yes.
And it was such a mind blowing experience for me that I was able to connect. I think for me, that's how history functions for me.
Hmm.
You're able to connect all these disparate things from your life, from video
Yes.
games, from what's happening in the greater world, to the economy, and to whatever, to things that happened many, many centuries ago. So
Hmm.
that's how I kind of, that's how I approach history. And
Yeah.
I'm hoping, I get people to like it too, because of that approach.
Yeah. To make it more relatable in a way.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. There's that saying. I don't know. I forgot what it was word for it, but those who forget history are doomed to repeat. Is something
Yeah,
along those lines.
right,
Do you,
right.
since we're talking about the bubonic plague, and now we're in a pandemic. I know it's far
Mhm.
between. I mean, super different. But do you think that we missed some lessons along the way? Did we
Yeah.
forget? We, in your
Oh
opinion?
man. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Okay. How do I say this? I think for me personally, to use history as a predictive tool, like, okay, I'm going to study the past because I want to know what happens in the future. I mean, I don't know if you remember this video game. It's a very command and conquer,
Oh.
way of,
Yeah.
it's a very command and conquer way of looking at things. For me, maybe I'm not, because I'm not professionally trained as a historian. It wasn't my course back in college. I really dip into this like as a very big hobby of mine. But to use history as kind of a predictive tool, for me, I can't do that, and I don't see history as an avenue for doing that. I would like I think I just see the echoes. I think for me,
Yep.
to see the echoes. Wow, mixed metaphors. To hear the echoes,
The
to hear the
echoes.
echoes from the past coming along again. And
Yes.
does it say something? Yes, it says something. But what exactly this thing is, I still have to figure that out. And it may be, and that's not what I'm trying to do in this podcast at all. I mean, I'm making you hear. I make people want to hear the echoes like I do, but I
Yes.
don't want to say, okay, this echo means this. Like
Right. It's
that's
more
something
open
that's
to
way,
interpretation.
yeah,
Yes. Okay, let's talk about the podcast. So the name of the podcast is what's the name of the podcast is Occupy Pilipinas. So
right,
it came about during the pandemic. That's when you started it, or you already had plans to make it pre-lockdown.
right. Well, actually, like you said in the intro, I used to racket. Alam mo
Yes.
naman, I mean, we all need to do our little
Yes,
rackets
we
here
do.
and there.
I
So
agree.
rumakit ako Esquire Philippines, and one of the things that I pitched was, I want to do some historical articles.
Mm.
So I think the first one that I submitted was a long 6,000 word article on the British invasion of Manila, which no one really talks about. I mean, we know it
Mm.
happened. We know we were under the British for around a year, but I wanted to get into the details of the siege, the actual beach invasion. So I was thinking in my head, okay, I'm gonna write it like Saving Private Ryan or Master and Commander, that kind of beach invasion kind of
Yeah.
feel. So I really wanted to make it very cinematic. So that's how I wrote the article, and the editor split it into three parts. And then I said, hey, this is fun. And so I kept maybe every 3 months, every 4 months, I kept submitting articles until I got around 7 or 8. And then
Mm.
things got crazy busy. So I said, okay, I can't rack it anymore. And
Uh-huh.
then it was always in the plan to turn it into a book. I was like,
Okay.
hey, I'm in some book school. Pero yeah, I mean, of course, no special treatment. Even if I'm an editor there, like I still have to go through the pitching process,
Mm.
and they still have to, okay, is this going to be something worth investing in? And what happened when the pandemic hit? I was supposed to write it in 2020, and then the pandemic hit, and I said, we all know the business realities. I was like, oh man, this probably might not happen as a book, you know?
Mm.
And then like maybe around May or June, like I kept hearing people like starting doing podcasts, and they said, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if I made it into a podcast?" So
Yeah.
that's how it started. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Great.
I got
So what about the so for the our listeners who maybe you piqued their interest? Oh man, that sounds cool. I want to hear about Philippine history or any sort of history in audio format. But how do you present it? Is it similar to your writing? Because when it comes from page to the well, I guess I was gonna say from page to screen, but from page
yeah,
to sound, from page to sound.
yeah.
Well, how does it translate? Do you add effects, sound effects, background music, or are you just reading what you wrote? How do you present it in the podcast form?
Right. So I wanted to make it as cinematic as possible, even in the way I wrote it. So what I did, there's a very good production team behind it. Shout out to the Summit Media video team who
Mm.
helped me with this. But basically, we tried to turn it into a radio play. I
Mm.
mean, if you guys
Like a
took
radio
com.
carry.
Yeah, yeah. Raj's
Right.
area, exactly. So you guys took com. I'm sure you did this in your spare time. You want to go to yung walis
Yeah.
tambo, and then you can make horse
Nice.
sound effects. So yeah, so yeah, I kind of said, okay, I want that feel like maybe AM radio, but meets Hollywood. Maybe Raj's area meets Hollywood. So
Feel it.
I picked the most trailery music, like something you might hear in Pirates of the Caribbean or Master and Commander Far Side of the World. And I would get sound effects of cannons, horses, men fighting, swords clashing, exactly. And then we would just sprinkle it on the podcast. So just to make it, to bring it more to life than
Mm.
just me reading it, because that's really dull.
Yeah. And so far up to, I mean, as of today, today is what, January 28th, 2021. How many episodes have you put out, and how often are you releasing these? Are these
Uh,
weekly,
yeah, yeah.
bi-weekly?
Oh, I wish it was weekly. What we did was that we kind of grouped it into we call them seasons, but they're really short. Each
Hmm.
episode is around 15 minutes, which I think is great because I mean, if you're short on time, it's really the perfect length for you to listen to an
Great for a
episode. But
drive, great for a driver or a drive home or
yeah,
drive to work.
yeah, 15. Lalo na ngayon na medyo nabawasan ng traffic, diba?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So parang 20 minutes sakto talaga yun eh. But we made a bunch of six first, and we said, okay, let's release it as season one. Let's just call it season one, and let's see how the response is. And then if the response is good, I've already actually started working on the next set of six.
Hmm.
So, but I don't think I can share concrete plans of when we can release the next batch. But yeah, there's 6 episodes as of now, and
Hmm.
yeah, we're working on the next
Working on
series of six.
All right. You mentioned earlier the article about the British invasion of the Philippines.
Yeah.
Uh, so, what are your stories? The ones that are already published on the podcast. What is that one about? Or are those just talking about your, like you said, the what do you call it? The ripple, not the ripple.
Echoes,
The
echoes. Yeah.
echo, the
Yeah.
echoes of how it inspires you about history. What are the
Okay.
episodes about? The current season, the first season.
Yeah, yeah. So the reason I picked the name Occupy Pilipinas is because I wanted to focus on a very specific period of Philippine history.
Mm.
Actually, it's not so specific because it's really long. Because for 365 years, we were under an occupier of some sort. So take your pick, man. Spanish, British, American, Japanese. Right? Okay. So you have these picks. So I said, okay, I think all my history stories should be about untold stories from the occupiers. So uh,
Mm.
yeah, so that was the whole point of the
I,
podcast.
yeah.
Yeah, so that I want to get little known stories
Mm.
from those 365 years. So it's a really long time gap, but I really wanted to jump from one time period to the other. So the first three episodes were about the British Battle of Manila when they landed on Malate Beach and attacked, like very, very Lord of the Rings, very Mordor. Sorry, very, very Mordor attacking Gondor kind of siege
Condor.
to
Okay.
Manila. Yeah. And then, so that's the first three episodes. And then I did a time jump to 1944 for episode four, which is about, a nightclub in Japanese occupied Manila, which was secretly aspiring for the
Mm.
American. Yeah, so it's kind of like if you think of I don't know, some hot club now, but actually there's aspiring operating in that club. So that was kind of the story for episode four. Then
I see.
episode five, I rewinded again to around maybe the 1600s, or the late 1600s, where there was a Mindanao slave who was captured, brought to England, and he was displayed there, and his skin was cut off, and it
Ugh.
was displayed in Oxford. Like he
Whoa.
died. Yeah, he died, and they were so curious about his tattoos because for them, like tattoos were like, whoa, super exotic. The British. So the guy was covered in tattoos. I mean,
Uh,
that is how we rolled back then.
yeah.
We,
Yeah.
we were
Yep.
really we were really a tattooed people at that time. So
Mhm.
they were so curious that when he died, they skinned him and they displayed his skin in Oxford, like
Uh,
the actual Oxford Library. So I kind of dug up his story, like, okay, what happened here?
okay.
Yeah, so that was episode five, and episode six was the Red Dead Redemption bubonic plague
Yep.
connection.
Yep.
So
Okay.
yes, it's really a time jump. I really wanted to get that feel, like when you go to an episode, like, okay, there's a different time period that we're
Nice.
gonna tackle right now.
So in a way, it's like you're not spending one whole season on a specific time period. You're just
Yeah,
going around and highlighting what I would call those obscure stories in history that might have been forgotten if not for your research and your podcast. Which leads me to ask, since you mentioned earlier that you weren't you're not a trained historian, but you're you're it's a I would you define yourself as a
yeah,
hobbyist? Is that
yeah,
is that a
yeah. I'm really interested in it. Yeah.
Okay. So my question is, where do you even go and find these stories? Where do you learn about them? Is there a library that you go to? Are there websites? I mean, how do you find these reliable sources that give you these events in history?
Right. For me, like the best sources, or the things that really kickstart my imagination are books. So definitely, like I have so many. I have so many things here. Like I would go to, so this was where I got most of the reference material for the Red Dead Redemption 2 episode. It tackled the medical history of the Philippines. And then there's this other book about how the ancient Filipinos lived in the 1600s. So I would go to Manila Book Fair and I would
Oh,
just stock up on I would just stock up on history books
Agree.
from Ateneo Press, UP Press, UST Press. Shout out to those guys. I mean, they're really doing a lot of good work. And I would read through them and try to find something interesting, and
Mm.
then I would cross reference it with stuff with either other books. Of course, I wish I had unlimited budget to buy all the books I needed, but back before the pandemic, sometimes I would go to my old school, UP, and go spend a day in the library there to kind of find other reference material. The
Mm.
internet, obviously, I mean, if you vet it well, if it comes from a journal, if it comes from a academic paper, usually that's where I would cross reference those sources.
Nice.
So
All
yeah,
right.
it's a lot of reading. It's a lot of reading, but yeah, books are really where they all start.
That's great. Hey, it's like you're doing all the hard work for us to so that you can put it into a 15-minute consumable episode in a podcast.
I hope, I hope it works. Yeah.
Yeah. We actually have a question off of Facebook from Jen. Jen is asking you, Leo, what's your favorite episode, if you have one, from your first season? No, you described the first season in a little bit of detail, but do you have a favorite one? Or because can they start? Do they have to start at episode
No,
one? Because
no,
the way you
no,
described,
they
no,
don't.
right?
They don't. Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
what's your favorite one so that Jen and other monsters could maybe hop on that one and see, like,
Right.
oh, this is neat.
For me, episode 4, like the World War II one, it was
World
so
War II.
fun to do because I wanted to do something jazzy, like for the background music. The background music for the first 3 episodes, which was about the British invasion, was more
Mhm.
very Pirates of the Caribbean. I really wanted that feel. For episode 4, I said, okay, I want to pick background songs that are very jazzy, very
Mm.
very pop, have that kind of very cool, very hip feel. So
Okay.
it was so good to record, and the story itself, sorry, the story itself is really interesting. Just the fact, that there's a spy ring hidden in this nightclub. It's and the head spy there is a woman, is an American woman who really deserves her own movie. Yeah, her name was Claire Phillips. She married a Pinoy, but I think at the time the story happened, they weren't seeing each other, and she was seeing this American soldier who was captured by the Japanese. So she set up the nightclub to try to find information on how she can rescue her lover.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was really. I mean, the character, the person of Claire Phillips is really wow. She's one of
You're
a
right.
kind.
There's a movie. I mean, espionage, action, romance. That's got Hollywood written all over it. If you
Yeah,
ask me.
exactly.
So Leo, when you describe your podcast, it does really sound cinematic the way that you envision it. So in the future, do you plan to convert it either into a film or video format, and B, if you're just going to stick to the podcast, are you considering maybe hiring a voice cast? That would be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean all those things. As much as possible, I don't want I don't want me narrating it. It's so. I mean, I think you know this. When you hear yourself,
Oh,
you're
it's
like,
weird.
oh
Oh, it's so
God.
weird. It took me
Ah.
a long time to get used to it.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, yeah, I mean, dude, if I can get a voice cast right now and just do all the work, just let them do all the work, I would. But yeah, I think for me the dream is still for it to come out as a book. I
Uh-huh.
think that's always been. I mean, I've always been a big reader, and I work. I mean, it became my job. It became my day job.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, I would be happy. The podcast is great, but I think the greatest happiness for me would be if it came out as a book, and that's it. Anything beyond that is I don't want to go for that. So
Okay. While we're on the topic about your love for history, 'cause since you've made it into a podcast and everything, have you got any feedback from, well, quote unquote serious historians, or like, I don't know what, because when there's doctors, they're a doctor, they're
mm,
historians, right? That's what you call them. Is that the term, historian?
yeah,
Have you?
yes, yes.
But wouldn't you be kind of like a historian as well, though, in a way? Or do
Uh,
you think,
I wouldn't call my. I mean, I wish. I hope I would get the qualifications. Like
okay.
another of my dreams is to actually go back to university and take courses in history.
Well, have you gotten
Um,
feedback from historians about your
Not
podcast,
yet,
about
not
your
yet.
articles? Not
I
yet.
Yeah, I do welcome. I when the articles were first published, there were some like I called a ship, a British ship, a frigate, when it was actually a man o' war. Yeah,
Man
so
of war.
there was that. Yeah, there was that comment, and for the there was some back and forth with my Japanese. The Japanese episode or the Japanese article, the World War II article about why the Americans or why the Japanese did their last stand in Manila instead of surrendering. So there was that argument, and I love reading that. I welcome that kind of back and forth about people talking about the work.
Okay. So Leah, let's move on to your day job as editor in chief of Summit Books.
Mm.
First and foremost, how does one? Let's talk about the pitching process because you mentioned it earlier. You said there's no special treatment if you were going to make a book. So I think I'm curious, as well as other monsters out there would be curious. What is the pitching process for getting a book published by Summit Books? If we have any aspiring writers out there who say, "Oh, I think I have a great manuscript or book," how can they get it published?
Yeah, we're always looking for new material. We're always on the lookout for new stuff that we can turn into a book. But basically, yeah, it's you can actually just email us. We do have a, unfortunately I don't have it with me right now, but it's in our Facebook page, the Summit Books Facebook page, where you can actually send us a proposal. So usually, what we're looking for is, um, a description of what your book is about,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully some sample chapters as well, maybe three, because we want to know, how you write and what direction you want to take this book on. And actually, and this is something that most people take for granted when they think, okay, I'm going to start a book. And this is something I know as well. You think, oh, I'm going to start a book. It's not easy to finish one. So
Mm,
every author that we publish, I mean, it's a marathon for them. It's really one of the most grueling things that they do to actually sit down and finish a book. Like I had an author, Risa, Risa Trillo. Hello, if she's watching. Like she told me like writing the book was like giving birth to another baby. That was how difficult it was. Yeah, and it's really that's something that you may have a good idea for the book. You may even have sample chapters, but just to go through that process of finishing it and then you submit it for editing, and
mhm.
then after that editing process you have to kind of revise again. It's really
A grueling
it,
process.
it taxes you a lot. So we kind of have to we ask you right off the bat, hey, can you actually do this? Can you
Right.
actually go to the finish line, get to the finish line with
Okay.
this
Well,
thing that you have?
for the the strong-willed authors who do make it to the end and get a book published, good for them. Congratulations to them. And I want to ask you, Leo, what how do you see the print media as a platform or as a as a, well, I guess, as merchandise in
Yeah,
this day and age of ebooks and blogs and the quick social
and
media
podcasts.
attention span and podcast? How do you see print moving forward? Is it still something that is? I mean, will it ever die? Do you think?
Yeah,
I
I totally believe it. I totally believe. I mean, print's been around for 600 years. I'm not gonna count it out, or even more if you count, the Egyptian,
Yeah.
wall, Egyptian hieroglyphics. I mean, it's been around forever, and I'm not gonna count it out just yet. Obviously, the landscape is changing a lot, and Summit Books, especially, we did have to. We do change with the times as well. I mean, again, like we launched the podcast, we've really gone very all in on ebooks as well. especially during the pandemic when all the bookstores were closed. Like we really had to step up our ebook initiatives. We're getting into Lazada, we're getting into Shopee. I mean, we are on Lazada, we are on Shopee, we are on e-commerce. So we kind of also try to adapt to the times. But yeah, I would say that print remains our core product, and we believe there's still a big future ahead for print, and it's always nice. Like I have a Kindle, and I have and I buy a lot of books on my Kindle. But for books that I really want or that I really like, nothing beats holding it
Yeah,
and
the
having it collect.
tactile feel, right? The tactile
Yeah,
feel
yeah,
of having it. It's kind
yeah,
of
and
like
I
owning a record, right, or an album,
right,
like the physical
right, right.
copy.
Yeah, yeah. And the physicality of it is something that really speaks to you like nothing else. I mean, it's hard to get the same feeling reading an ebook on the Kindle, for example, versus flipping a page. Like even the and even for the podcast, like reading a book, you can bookmark it, you can flip back. It's much easier to do research on a book versus a PDF. I have to say, especially PDFs of manuscripts of books that are 3D printed, you can't copy and paste those things because they're
Yeah,
really just scans, like they're literal scans of old books, and you can't copy
yeah,
paste that. Oh God, what I do, I would take photos. I mean, like you would Xerox, you would photocopy it just so you have
yep,
something,
yep.
you have a hard copy to flip through. I mean, iba talaga pag pag print.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. And I a lot of people, especially the buyers of books, and especially the books that Summit publishes, they really, I'm sure that's the feeling that they get when they hold the book in their hands. Like for me, I guess, I mean, I'm not the biggest book reader. I'm willing to admit that, but the Harry Potter book, I feel like would have
Yeah.
been the Harry Potter series would have been completely different if had I read it on.
Man, yeah,
Yep.
man, right? Yeah,
It's got
right.
the
It's
Goblet of Fire.
crazy.
You got the Goblet of Fire?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's Goblet of Fire. I mean, the entire collection's here, but yeah,
Yep.
it's different. Like
Yeah, I think I
you
agree. I
bring
agree.
that, you bring that book seven, which is this thick. It's crazy.
So Leo, as the editor in chief of Summit Books, you must also have access to the analytics, so to speak, of what is flying off the shelves, so to speak. What are the most
Mhm.
popular genres of books that are being sold these days?
Right.
Is it fantasy, especially the ones written by local artists, of course?
I wish I wish that we had things to an exact science because that would make our jobs easier. Like we can come out with a book and yes, guaranteed it will fly off the shelves. But you can really only make educated guesses every time you release a book. But definitely, in terms of the local scene, I would say that. Well, speaking internationally first, I would say that a lot of uh, YA, I think, is starting to evolve
Mhm.
in the sense that people are taking a chance with uh, more indigenous voices. So, and you've seen this even in Hollywood with Black Panther, for example, or the upcoming Raya movie from Disney. Like, people are willing to actually bet on stories that aren't set in worlds that are typical Tolkienish. I mean, the very European centric worlds. So
Yes.
yeah, you have Avatar, you have the things you see in Avatar, the things you see in Black Panther. This has been going on in books for some time already, where you're really getting a more diverse set of voices that are publishing books, whether in fantasy, whether in science fiction, etc. So that's something that we see internationally, and we hope to actually also bring here. Uh, our bread and butter is actually, in terms of fiction, still romance novels. It's something that we've been publishing a lot through our pop fiction line for the past since we started actually in 2014. Like pop fiction has really been our bread and butter, and a lot of Pinoys really still do consume these love stories that are, very
Korean
Korean
event,
inspired,
K
Korean
drama.
novela inspired, yeah, K drama inspired, J drama inspired, or even telenovela inspired. They absorb those influences and they come out with their own take on it. And these books still sell really well. But we've been seeing a big uptick in our fantasy and our dark fantasy books, our sci-fi books, our thriller books. These are things that have been picking up since the past year and a half.
Uh-huh.
So we hope to go more with that in the future.
Okay, I'm not gonna ask you to pick favorites, but can you name a few books that you could recommend? And how can some of our monsters buy them, or are you gonna just remain neutral? Like I feel like you're like the dad of
Hirap.
they're about
I like. I mean, obviously, I like them all.
Yep. Okay.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be publishing them. But yeah, definitely the last two. I think the last two that we published. Uh, yeah. Actually, I want to give a shout out to this dude. Uh,
Mickey.
yeah, Alinam. I think you
Yeah.
interviewed him.
I
Yeah, you
I watched.
interviewed.
I read the book. It was really good.
Yeah. It was pretty good. The story with this, I mean, I'm sure Mickey told you, but we've been working on this book for the past 3 years.
Yeah.
It's it's crazy. I mean, I've lived and breathed this book really intensely for the past 3 years, and for it to come out and to have it very well received. I mean, it was a bestseller in December.
Mhm.
Really makes me happy. And I wish if I cannot recommend this strongly enough. I mean, this is the kind of book I wanted to read when I was growing up.
Yep.
Like,
It involves
so
history. It involves
yeah, and it
history.
involves history.
It's
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, those, and of course, I don't know if you interviewed him,
Yep.
Salamanca too.
Yep.
Yeah,
We did.
yeah. So it's beautiful. I mean, I think this is what I'm talking about when you're talking about print books
Mhm.
like this. You cannot get the experience of this artwork on a screen.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. It's very
Yes.
difficult to have that experience on the screen, especially with the small mobile phone screens. Like this book can really only be experienced as a widescreen. I mean, even the way we designed the format,
Widescreen
that it's
format.
widescreen. Yeah, it's a widescreen format. Usually, books are like portrait, like cell phone, like big cell phone size. Right? But we really, the author really made the conscious decision to make it widescreen.
Yeah.
We also have. I don't have a copy with me right now, but our latest one. Another joy of print book is a sticker book.
Sticker. I love stickers.
It's called the adult Get Your Shtick Together. It's the
Okay.
adult sticker book. Yeah, it's
Okay.
it's really in the sense that we got really very very talented Instagram artists, and
I
we asked
love
them
it.
to design stickers based on the theme of adulting. Like
Hmm.
they were free to interpret however they wanted it. So like
Yeah.
one artist did cats and Zoom. Like he made this series of a pet owner and his cat, and he's trying to have a Zoom meeting, but the cat is like going
Oh
crazy,
yeah.
and he made like a dozen stickers of all the crazy situations there. So good. I really love that. And another artist, made you work from home dinosaurs, like us, but in dinosaur
I,
form, like doing dalgona or
yeah.
trying to plant. It's, it was so cool, and yeah, again, something that you can't get digitally. So
I'll have to check that out.
yeah, it's Get Your Stick Together. So all our books are actually available in Lazada and
All right.
Shopee. So just search for Summit Books there, and you can see, you can order the book straight from there.
Oh, nice. Leo. Just as a side note, I'm a huge sticker collector. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, they're probably not gonna have a sticker con this year. But you should go
Yeah,
join the
yeah.
sticker. Oh,
I
it's my
know, I
favorite.
know,
It
I
is my
know, I
favorite.
know. I go to Comiket. I go to
Oh
Comiket
yeah.
regularly, and yeah, and there are lots of booths with stickers.
Awesome.
Uh,
Hopefully, you'll see you there next time. Once
yeah,
mass
yeah,
gatherings
yeah.
are allowed. once again.
I know, but it's so stupid to plug it. But yeah, if you want that sticker feeling, for everyone out there who wants that sticker feeling but can't get it because there's no mass gatherings,
Yep,
check out
there you go.
Get Your Stick Together. Yeah,
Get your stick together. Lastly, Leo, let's talk about you also write for Spin.PH, or you're an editor, associate editor at
yeah,
Spin.PH, correct?
right, right.
But that's sports. It's mostly sports.
Mhm.
Is that your other love besides history, or do you incorporate, or do you write about sports history? What is all?
Okay,
What's
no, my friends, okay, pasintabi sa boss ko, pero alam naman ni boss to. But, my friends were always surprised that I got into Spin.PH because hindi
Mm.
talaga ako sports eh. As in,
Okay?
sobrang, hindi, I mean, it's very clear. But, my role, when I got on board Spin.PH, medyo specific talaga yung role na kinuha nila para sa akin, which is to build the lifestyle side of
Mm.
Spin.PH. So, Spin has been around for 12 years and it has one of the best teams of reporters out there. As in, these guys, I'm so happy actually na sumali ako sa team because I'm actually the one learning from them on how to write at speed, how to cover, how to talk to sources. I mean, these guys are the best at what they do. And sobrang idol ko sila, no? But I think one of the things that they also wanted for Spin was to kind of expand into shoes, into more lifestyle. So shoes, fitness, movies, pop
Mm.
culture, all the lifestyle related things that are adjacent to sports. So
All right,
that's the side that I take care of in Spin. And
that's cool.
yeah, I really love it. Not just because I get to write. I mean, if you check out Spin.PH right now, I think my latest article was about Space Jam 2. So yeah, that's the kind of thing I do there. But
What's the article about? Wait, I'm curious now. What did you
no,
what?
H-
It's just about.
HBO Max dropped this 3 second footage
Oh, it's
of
like a
Space Jam
teaser.
2. So 3 seconds lang. Sabi ko, isusulat ko ba to? Parang 3 seconds lang. Ano bang bago? And then there was a shot of a shoe, a Nike. Like
Uh-huh.
they zoomed in like a split second shot of Nikes, and it was a silhouette that hasn't been like. I'm like, what is this? This doesn't look like the LeBron 18.
Yeah.
This doesn't look like. I mean, it's a bit Air Jordan 35-ish, but it's a very
Mhm.
armored looking sneaker. So
Right.
basically, I said, "Hey, what's this mystery sneaker in the 3 second
Ah.
footage that HBO?"
Okay.
So
I
mga
dig it. I dig
simple,
it.
simpleng blog, simpleng article lang na gano'n, parang boom, hulog mo yan. But I've been covering gaming, been covering esports.
Mhm.
Me and the lifestyle team have been really going hard on esports and gaming as well, and fashion. We're trying to build that up too. So yeah, that's my role in Spin.PH, and my favorite part about it is really just learning from the sports experts.
Yeah.
Ibang klase sila. Like they know their stuff. Like they're really veterans in their fields, and I'm really thankful just to learn from them.
Are you into? I know you said you're not the biggest sports person, but do you follow any league? PBA, NBA.
Yeah, well, because of work, dati nanonood ako ng, I would watch F1 before
F1.
pre-spin, F1, NHL, MLB, konting pag finals, pag playoffs finals. I would back in the 90s Sonics, naging Sonics fan ako, tapos naging Kings,
Sean Kemp
tapos
and Gary
yeah,
Payton.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Tapos di na ako nanonood after. But yeah, and then, but then because of Spin, I started regularly watching NBA and PBA again. And again, it's like history. You discover, boom, all these things, ang galing pala, ang interesting pala nila lahat.
Nice. Well, how about in the future? I mean, you said that they hired you for a specific reason. That's to enhance the lifestyle. But what if you could, maybe pitch to them? Hey, what if I do a little history of blank, history of basketball, history
Yeah,
of
yeah,
blank?
that's in the works. I've
That's right. Down
there's
for that
there's
too.
some articles that it's just hard to go out and get resources.
Yeah.
Pero yeah, I mean the history of sports in the Philippines is pretty interesting. Like, there's one topic that I want to tackle. Like, we were actually a baseball country.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Before we were
Soccer.
huge, we were a
Mm.
huge baseball country, and then it became basketball. And there's I've looked up several. I've seen on the internet several academic papers talking about that, like how that shift happened, how that transition happened. So medyo pinitch ko sa boss ko siguro a few months ago, pero hindi ko na follow up. Pasensya na. But
I recall there being a little league scandal. When I was younger, I remember hearing about it. Do you know that like it was the Philippine, like we fielded an overage player, something like that, during the Little League World Series or something like that. I think
tanong ko
that would
tanong
be
ko Yeah, yeah. I haven't.
interesting.
Yeah, tanong ko yan. That
Okay.
sounds good. That sounds interesting.
And well, just like I mean, sport. I mean, everything that happens in sports is monumental. I mean, there are, even though there's a champion each year, there are certain memorable ones in recent years.
Mhm.
So everything that happens nowadays is still going to be a part of our history, especially now
Mhm.
during this pandemic. This is going to be something that will be written in the history book. So I'm asking you, Leo, with what you've learned about our past. What do you think about our present and future? I know you're not a historian and you don't want to make, you don't want to read too much into echoes, but I'm asking you as just as a on a personal note,
Right.
what do you expect? What do you expect is going to happen in our history, Philippine history, moving forward?
Okay, this is tricky. But yeah, no. Early on in the pandemic, what I was thinking was that the conditions we're experiencing now are pretty similar to what happened before World War One.
Mm.
Like there was that flu pandemic of 19. No, actually that was already in World War One when the flu pandemic happened. But yeah, the economic crash and a lot of the rise of these fascist movements, it kind of happened already maybe a century ago. So early on in the pandemic, that was my main fear. Like, okay, are we going to see a repeat of what happened exactly 100 years ago, and the world was plunged into the First World War? Uh, so there was that anxiety that was hovering on my mind. Maybe March, April. Um, I don't know yet. It's hard to see if I should be more optimistic or more pessimistic with what's happening. But that's still that's still on top of my mind. Like, are we heading to a flashpoint? Especially now. I mean, you have that compounded crisis of global warming, which is coming. Man, this is midnight talk already. Sobrang happy times, no? But Pero yeah, that's something that still bothers me, or that's still something I think about.
Mhm.
I Obviously the conditions now are parallel, but again, it's still very much different. So I'm hoping that the difference tilts it positively.
Positive.
Tilts the
Positive.
world positively.
I
Yeah,
agree. I agree. And on that note, Leo, anything you want to share with your friends and family listening? Of course, any greetings, messages, and to all our listeners who might be interested in maybe knowing more about you and your podcast, where can they find you on your social media? And of course, remind them again of your podcast where they can listen to that as well.
yeah. Okay. So yeah, Occupy Pilipinas is on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. So just search for it. I mean, we do have the Bitly links on our on our social media pages, no. But basically, the easiest thing is to just go there and search for Occupy Pilipinas. And hope you guys have fun listening, as I had as much fun, writing and producing and recording it. So yeah, and I don't have any personal public social media pages, but I do want people to. I hope people can follow the Summit Books and Spin.PH social media pages. There's so many. For the book side, we have so many plans for 2021. We're super excited to come out with a new lineup of books. And again, it's like me and history. Like, we try to come out with something new every time. So you don't know if you're gonna get a sticker book. You don't know. You don't know if you're gonna get a memoir. You don't know if you're gonna get a. Actually, yeah. Oh my God, I forgot to plug this. But
Go ahead. Go
before
ahead.
we re- before we released the Get Your Shtick Together, there was another book that we released. It was a memoir of gigolo,
Oh,
like an actual gigolo who decided, hey, I want to write my life story. You know, he's a young dude. He's a young European dude who's active in Asia, and we got to meet him. Well, actually, someone wrote about him in Cosmopolitan Philippines. A
okay.
client, like
Okay.
she
Okay.
there was a client, and she wrote about the experience. And then my our boss was like, hey, why don't you get in touch with the guy and see if he can, if he wants to
Tell us.
turn it, yeah, tell his story. And he did. So we met in Wildflower. Wow, man, yeah, more than a year ago already.
Okay.
And he said, hey, yeah, let's do this. So he told his stories, and we compiled it into a book. And yeah, we came out with it December. It's called An Italian Gigolo in the City.
Hey, I'm
So
gonna
yeah,
have to read that one.
it's really fun, dude. I'm telling you, it's really it's really fun. It's not
Okay.
it's not salacious. It's
It's
not
not
tawdry.
erotic. Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
erotic.
yeah. I would say it's erotic, but it's
It's not
actually
just
like
for the sake of being erotic. Yeah.
there's one chapter that's really funny. Like that
Okay.
one surprised me. Like I was laughing my head off. It was crazy. The story was crazy. And then there's a chapter that's very sweet. Like he really takes you through a range of emotions.
I
You know?
love it.
Yeah. So that was such a good book too. I
Mhm.
had so much fun editing it, and I hope people can check it out as well.
Nice.
So that's our goal in Summit Books. We really want a wide variety of voices to get out there. So 2021 will be very exciting for Summit Books as well. Spin.PH, obviously, for the latest in sports. Sports now is a very tricky subject because of the
The
pandemic.
virus. Mhm.
The virus. It's really no, but we're happy that sports fans in the Philippines are still really hungry for news. And they really love still reading about the PBA. They still love reading about Gilas, especially about Gilas. I mean, it's still gonna happen. The FIBA thing is still gonna happen next month.
Mhm.
So for the latest news there, we're on it. The team, the magnificent Spin Sports team is on it. And yeah, I mean, occasionally you might get some articles from me about Space Jam too. So bonus na lang yan.
Can't
Bonus na
wait.
lang yan. Bonus na lang. So
And any family or friends that you want to shout out before we
yeah.
let you?
Hello to if there are any Mangubats also listening here. Hello. Of course, hello to MM. And yeah, all my friends in books and spin and content lab, kung meron man nakikinig doon, you guys know who you are. And salamat. Sorry, ang awkward ko. So yeah.
Well, anyway, thank you Leo, very much. Thank you for joining us this evening. We hope to have you on the show once the pandemic's over. We hope to have you again here live in the
Right.
booth.
Yeah. I
And
love
thank
that.
you. Yeah, and good luck with Assassin's Creed. Okay, let me know how it goes.
I'm turn on the PS4 right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Join us again next week for more hot conversations here on Heard on Thursdays. My name is JC Tevez, and